to get into some of the benefits of it, uh, in order to create, say, a fungal chicken wing or chicken breast, you would be using 97% less feed to feed this vat of fungus than you would for an actual chicken. You'd feed it 93% less water, and it will produce 97% less CO2. And large part
Wow.
because any CO2 that it produces, then later in the cycle, it actually reabsorbs that and uses it in its own growth. The fermentation process is quite like cheese, um, and it is generally nutritionally complete. You'll have all 9 essential amino acids that you get from meat, but it can be lacking in fiber and zinc, but that can be made up for with some additives.
Okay.
Um, so there are concerns, of course, with any kind of fungus that there are a lot of people who would have fungal allergies. And so that is an issue with some of these foods. So there are people who can't eat those. So I suppose you want alternatives then to that. So another item that has been used as a foodstuff for quite some time, and it's sort of been on the fringe of Western foods. Uh, it's taken off more in sort of health foods, protein supplements. You find it in sushi and maybe in, excuse me, in some baking additives, is algae. Algae is pond scum. It's the stuff that floats on top of the water, or in fact, seaweed is an algae. You were saying that to me the other day, and I was like, no, it's a plant, but it is an algae. Algae are technically a kind of plant anyway, but they're not quite the same as regular plants. They're sort of independent. They float free, don't have root systems. So algae is actually amazingly high in lots of nutrients, particularly in protein, obviously, because it's used as a protein supplement. You can make spirulina, which is this fairly commonly used thickener for use in baking, and that I don't think, I didn't know spirulina was algae based, but there you go. You can also, those omega-3 capsules that you might have taken as a kid. Um, they're the ones I would have taken were fish based,
Mm-hmm.
but you can get algae based omega-3, so it's cruelty free. And then I've seen plenty of examples of this in the supermarket. You see algae crisps all around the place. Um, they're I don't know. I never found them particularly appetizing. Just the idea of eating crispy algae was like, do I want to? Um, but the the current or the modern, more sort of revolutionary use for it is in caking algae together and uh, giving it textures that are almost meat-like. I don't think it's quite as successful as the fungal um, meat imitations, but if you're looking for something that will fill that slot in the meal plate without having any cruelty attached to it, algae may be the way to go. It's used in a lot of animal feeds as well, used in meat preparation, oddly enough, and as an additive in cereals as well. It's nutritious, it grows fast, uh, there's no deforestation involved. It's generally environmentally and ecologically sound. However, of course, when you think of algae, one of the things I think of anyway, because it sort of comes up when I'm looking into space news and stuff, that a lot of the times the astronauts in the ISS will look out and see these vast, colorful uh, washes across the ocean. And this is an algal bloom, where these incredibly huge areas of ocean get deoxygenated because a species of algae has had basically an orgy and just spread out across this area of ocean. And it's actually incredibly destructive towards those ocean environments because it deoxygenates the water and fish suffocate. So you get these dead fish floating in this algae infested water. So that's a natural occurrence. It is something that is influenced, of course, by human activity, though, because of changes in ocean currents and changes in the salinity of seawater, um, oil spills, and that kind of thing.
Temperature as well.
Yes, absolutely. Um, so it's fast growing, nutritious. And there's actually immune system boosting properties of algae as well. So it's pretty good for you, and it can be grown in otherwise very limited conditions. You basically just get a tank and you can grow these things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ideal, again, to bring up spaceflight for uh, feeding a spaceborne populations. So people on spacecraft, far from Earth, far from resupply. If you have the basic nutrients that the algae needs, then you can create a nutritious food source for humans.
Mm-hmm.
And then, as I say, with various additives, make it somewhat like food that we'd be used to. In the science fiction series The Expanse, we have the Belter population. These are the people who have for generations lived and mined the asteroids. This is several centuries in the future. And so are adapted to life in outer space and have developed their own culture, which is an amalgam of all the cultures of the people who originally went out there, and have subsisted for generations on these kinds of foods, and in particular a form of algae that they grow in vats, and they turn it into everything from pasta to this kind of kibble that they call it, this kind of tray of broken up, almost bread-like substance,
Mm.
and that could be a realistic view of how future humans may eat. Um, the agriculture that these processes replace is accountable for about 42% of the impact of climate change, between the transportation emissions that are associated with it, but also just the land deforestation and the greenhouse gas emissions produced by the actual agriculture itself, cow burps, for example.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see the full version, go to the Uncle Gold Podcast YouTube channel or watch the next clip.